Good evening. You are now tuned in to BCBP Mission Go Live, Season 3, the second Be Honest series. For this season, we will tackle topics for discussion where stories are shared while speaking the truth and tips on how we can take action on our Be Honest advocacy. I am your host, Coach Anthony Lozada. All right. Before we start with our topic for discussion, I want to greet all of you watching us live on Facebook and YouTube, and also those watching this episode on replay. I'd like to greet as well our BCBP Alabang Chapter members and other BCBP community members out there. And of course, our family and friends. Magandang gabi sa inyong lahat, and thank you for joining us on tonight's episode 1. This Go Live online series is one way we continue to live out our BCBP mission of bringing Christ to the marketplace and winning the marketplace for Christ. And due to the popular demand, our discussion this season will be anchored on the BCBP's Be Honest advocacy, which is be honest even if others are not, even if others will not, and even if others cannot. Yan. Okay. So, tonight's topic is on honest ways of working in a hybrid future. We will tackle different perspectives on the way we work, maybe adjusting to working on-site, but for some, they may still be fully working from home. And there are those who choose to implement a hybrid work setup, which is partly working from home and partly working on site. All right, so hopefully insights and stories from our guests will be able to help you, our viewers, find the best and appropriate setup for your company or organization in order to increase productivity and be able to adapt positively to the challenges ahead. Now, but before our guest introduces themselves, may I invite all of you out there to chime in to the discussion. Please type in your questions, comments, and insights, and please join us. We'd love to hear from you. Also, please like, follow, or subscribe to our BCBP Alabang YouTube channel, Instagram, and Facebook page. And click the bell for notifications. Yan. Now, I would like to ask our guest panel to join me in this broadcast. Yan. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Good evening.
Good
evening, everyone.
Good evening. Wow. Everybody looks fresh. Maski na it's the end of the day. Maski na galing na sa office. I don't know if you came from your on-site or from your work from home.
Work from
place.
home.
Okay,
From the office.
right. Okay. Now, it's really a pleasure to have the three of our own BCBP members, Alabang, join us in our discussion tonight. So, may I ask you all to quickly introduce yourselves? But before I introduce our guest panelist, please give us a brief background professionally about your family and when did you become a member of the BCBP? And if you can share with us also the current work setup in your company. Are you back to working on site? Like sabi, working from home, di ba? Or are you now on a hybrid setup? So, let's start with the ladies first. May I call on Toni?
Hi, Coach Anthony. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Good evening.
Toni.
I am Toni Justiniano. I'm part of BCLP 50. I finished the session last year, 2020, and I'm glad to share with you that both my brothers and my sister-in-law are also part of BCBP. So, for the longest time, I've been working in the banking industry. But for this time, siguro patapos na ng aking career, no? Towards the end of paano na eh, pa 50s na eh, 50s na. So I decided to join a smaller company, and I'm now part of a financial services dealing with the car dealership industry. I am married, happily married. My husband is very supportive, and we have two children, and both grown. I have a nurse, and one is a marketing um, enthusiast. So that's it. Mylene, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Tony. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to be here. Okay, I'm Mylene Aquino. I've been with BCBP the past 3 years now, 2018. And very, very happy to be here. I learned a lot. But this is not, it will be a separate topic. But for today's topic, I'm very, very excited to discuss this because it's very close to my heart. First, professionally, introduce myself. I'm a managing director of one of the global technology companies here in the Philippines. And we are currently actually in a hybrid setup. Right now, it's 50-50 remote. 50% of our population working in the office and others are remote, but it's still hybrid. And then personally, I'm a mom. I'm married, of course, happily married, just like Tony. And I'm a mom of two boys, teenagers, 17 and 15. And, I enjoyed, working remotely because I get to spend more time with them. So let's talk about more about hybrid setup on how we are able to manage this new world in the business. Okay. Oh, Aris, it's your turn.
Thanks, Mylene. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Coach. My name is Aris Geronimo. I've been with the BCBP Alabang since 2017, so I was part of the BCLP 47 batch. And currently, I'm serving as action group leader together with my wife, Frances. We have a 7-year-old daughter, Francine. She's right now studying online, so virtual classes pa rin. So we compete sa bandwidth dito sa bahay and sharing the same room as well. So it's quite a challenge. Yeah, so I'm currently connected with a multinational pharma company as a marketing director, although transitioning to a new role come April. And I was also past president of the marketing executives of the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry. So I'm very, very excited to join the panel tonight because even in our company, we're quite ahead of the curve, if I may say, because even before the pandemic, we were starting with the hybrid setup already. So we give our employees like 1-2 days work from home option. But then again, it's still evolving right now. So we have a lot of things that's still to be sorted out, and I am very much excited to hear your thoughts and insights. Coming from different industries, and I'm sure we'll be having a very exciting, insightful, and productive discussion tonight. So back to you, Coach.
Yes, that's correct. Now, to those who have just tuned in, welcome to Go Live 3, Episode 1. All right. So, like I've mentioned earlier, we also have a guest panelist who has worked passionately with Filipino enterprises to help them achieve organizational alignment and build stronger value propositions. As the chief strategist of Firesprings Consulting, she leads the design and development of people, culture, building practices, systems, and techniques that impact business and organizational transformation. So let us all welcome to the panel Miss Rhea Joaquin-Primavera. Yeah. Hi,
Hi,
Rhea.
good evening, Coach.
Evening.
Good
Welcome to our
evening,
Go
Mylene,
Good
Live
Tony,
evening.
Aris.
online.
Right.
Hi.
Evening.
Hi, thank you. I'm so
Yes,
happy to be
yes.
here. And I appreciate you guys inviting me over for your first episode of this season, and thank you so much. Just like the rest of you, I'm also working from home. Sometimes working from the beach, sometimes working from Baguio, wherever work takes us. Where as long as there's internet, and so I'm really happy to share some ideas of how migrating back into hybrid will totally be effective, I guess, for most Filipino organizations. Just like most of you, I'm also happily married. I'm a mother of two kids, and as I mentioned to some of the people earlier, we also have 6 dogs. So I'm also a dog mom, dog ba? Dog mom. A
Yes.
fur mom there, a fur
Fur mom.
mom. That's what they
Fur
call
mom.
it.
Fur
Yeah,
mom.
a fur mom. Also, yeah. So thank you for having me again here.
All right. So thank you, thank you everyone for being here. Now we've heard from Mylene, Toni, Aris, and now Rhea on how their companies are currently set up. My first question is for Rhea. Yan. Where do organizations need to start transitioning into a hybrid work setup? Yan.
All right. Thank you for that question, which I think is in the minds of most of our Filipino leaders and managers and even employees today. No, how do you get started? There are two perspectives for me. No, one is from the employer side and one is from the employee side. But I think the first thing to reconcile is not everything kasi can be work from home. I think
Yes.
companies and our employees need to get reconciled that not all types of work can be done remotely, and that's why hybrid is an opportunity to actually restructure some of these roles. Some people, full-time working from home is problematic for 3 reasons. If I'm in a creative job, it's hard to be creative at a distance, or I may not be motivated to work away from people based on my personality. And employee loyalty can also be strained because there's no social interaction, there's no engagement. So there's a lot of factors to consider when you are setting up a hybrid work setup. But I think it has to start first from reconciling and recognizing that not everything can be hybrid. And I think that's one. The second thing for me out of the 3 points is working from home, I feel should be optional. And this is my belief. I think that employers should design their work setups wherein employees have the option to work from home and not mandate necessarily to work from home, unless, of course, of a pandemic. And this advice to let employees choose is very empowering for the employee. It allows them to set creativity and being productive with their time. Of course, there's limitations. No, I mean every employer should have limitations of you're allowed to work from home certain days of the week and certain days you have to come to work. But I believe that nobody should be forced to work from home full time, especially if they have internet issues. They have mm, kids also who are at home and make it very difficult as a distraction. So choice, I feel, is a key when you're setting up hybrid setups. Choice is a key. And for me, the third point is that working from home is a privilege. It's not an entitlement na I'm entitled to work from home. For any hybrid setup to succeed, it's essential to have effective ways of monitoring how employees can work from home because it's an entitlement.
Mhm.
It's a privilege that we are giving employees. But that comes hand in hand, no, with having a strong performance review system or a form of monitoring that allows, pero hindi naman yung micromanaging. I think it's important to have that balance. So for me, that's where I think employers can get started into migrating into a hybrid is first recognizing those 3 points. But there's the other side also. I believe also, no, coach, and I'm sure some of the panels here, other members of the panel will agree. Um, the employee is equally responsible for setting up an effective hybrid work, and that
Mhm.
involves them having the right habits, having the right routines, and being willing to be accountable wherever they're working, whether from home, from the office, from a coffee shop, from a satellite office. So I think it's twofold, coach.
Yes, and no, I myself had a difficulty with that because our business is a swim school, and I tried teaching 7-year-old how to swim in a 1 meter by 2 meter uh, uh, puddle of
Screen.
water, not even a swimming pool. But then we managed, but then the safety factor really is what I'm concerned about. Imagine if the kid had difficulty breathing, choked on water. So what I do, I can't call 911, di ba? So but at least for our panelists, Aris, Toni, and Mylene, what do you think of what are your takes with regards to what Rhea just said? How does it work with your setup?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for us actually in a technology company, hybrid setup is not new to us. We, as long as we have our laptop, our cell phones, we can work from anywhere. But of course, you can never replace, right, the connection face to face. So, but we acknowledge that we have to have hybrid because, especially in the technology company, we have talent war. So, majority of the employees, they prefer really to have work from. They refuse to work, go back to the office because they already have the routine. So we have to have that strike a balance of, personalizing um, the setup. So that's why, and it's also not like you cannot agree, but you cannot mandate. You cannot mandate for people to work from home, or you cannot mandate people to go back to office, because the reality is we cannot dictate people's decision. At the end of the day, it's their choice. So, given for us, we have talent war. There's talent war in the industry. You have to strike that balance on how you can accommodate the personal needs of the people, where they can best, be productive. And for us, it's making sure that we provide, the means, the right environment for them to be more productive, and also have that feeling of being taken care of, by, their well-being is also being supported. So yeah, that's right. That's why, we into that already, in terms of taking more personal connection, since, they can easily go anywhere, and we
Mhm.
need them also in the business. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree,
How about
Mylene,
you,
no?
Tony?
Yeah, si
Yeah.
Tony
Yeah,
ata.
I
Tony has
agree. I
something
agree
to.
with what Rhea and what you said, no? But it also depends on the readiness of the organization. Because as you
True.
said, it cannot be dictated, right? And not all jobs can be done from home. Like in our case, we are in the automotive business. The service technicians cannot do their work on
Yeah.
at home. So they have to be at work to be able to do their job. So the role of HR and the line managers is first, as you said, ascertain which among the jobs can be done at home and which cannot be done at home. And for the rest, the mga tao na mga who can do their work at home, we have to put some structures. So hindi
Correct.
pwedeng halabira na lang that they have to,
Mm.
they can
Yeah.
just stay home and not report. So we have to have, maski siguro as simple as an Excel file to ascertain the accomplishments that they need, that they did a day, during the day, and submit it to their supervising officers. So it should be target based. It should be accomplishment based so that you could monitor also if the people are productive or not. Because if not, wala na, parang nagpasweldo na lang tayo sa mga taong hindi nagtatrabaho, right? So there has to be some structure that we need to do, not only on the HR side, but also, of course, we need the support of the line managers in monitoring the productivity of their employees. And isa pa, yun na nga, aside from having that structure, the company should also be ready in approving if they are really, if they are going to allow people to have this hybrid work environment, or if they are going to just be have the traditional way of, reporting for work. Because, ang dami pa ring nagre-rent ng mga office spaces in Makati, in BGC. What are we going to do with those office spaces? The leased spaces na ang lease ay 5, 10, 15 years or even 20. So there has to be a lot of thinking that should be considered before we can just allow people to just do work from home or work on site. But I agree with what Mylene said. It has to be a balance, especially now that there's war for talent, especially the young generation. They would rather do their work in Boracay or in any beach resort, and I have seen that a lot. As long as you give them the targets, and they will produce and let you know if they have done and they've finished their work. 'Di ba? So, kailangan talagang himas-himas. So, older people, the older generation may not be ready dito sa ganitong klaseng hybrid. Especially when we were young, we were measured by the number of hours we spent behind our desk, right? Even if we are not that productive. But today, in this hybrid organization, we really need to produce. Kaya the older generation should also, keep an open mind towards digitalization, towards the new trend in the hybrid organization. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow, Tony, thank you very much. A while ago, Aris, I'm just curious, kasi a while ago, Rhea mentioned that there should be a strong performance system to monitor targets. Well, I guess I don't know who sets the targets, and if this is the first time that the company or a company is doing this, I'm sure they don't have that yet on how much productivity they can demand or they expect
Yeah.
from employees on a weekly or daily basis. So, Aris, how do you think? What are your thoughts on this in regards to your company?
Yeah. Well, I think this type of change, in terms of work setup and employee engagement, it's really something that we need to embrace, because this is already the not the future, but it's actually happening already. And even before the pandemic, actually we already see the trends. There are discussions about telecommuting, 3 or 4 day work weeks and things like that, especially in the US and Europe. And all these trends, it's just a matter of time before it hits our shore, di ba? But then again, when pandemic happened, na fast track lahat, di ba? We have no choice but to really adopt or embrace this particular setup. And I think tama yun, siguro just to take off from what Mylene, Tony, and Rhea already shared. There must be a balance, because right now it's not time based, it's output based
Yeah.
already. So I think it's very
Yes.
important to take note of that. And siguro it's not just a matter of putting structure, and making sure that the employees are working when they're at home, but
Mm-hmm.
really focusing on how to make them productive and how to continuously engage them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because at the end of the
That's right.
day, if you lose that connection,
Mm-hmm.
kahit na meron kang structure in place,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Correct.
problems will arise. So it's very
Yes.
important to also put emphasis on employee engagement and
Mm-hmm.
supporting
Right.
them on how to be more productive while working
Mm-hmm.
from home. So I guess you should
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
strike that balance. No?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
for
You
me,
know,
balance, di ba? Laging two facets yan eh. Honesty sa part ng employees, and then
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
trust sa part ng management. 'Di
Yes.
ba?
Mm-hmm.
Kasi,
Yeah.
it's very hard and challenging to have this kind of setup if you don't have trust
Mm-hmm.
on your employees, 'di ba?
Mhm.
So, in my case, that's my default mindset. So I trust my people that that they're doing their job while working from home, but at the same time, they have to prove to me that they're worthy of that trust. So I will trust you until you prove me otherwise, 'di ba? Ganun yung
Yeah.
mindset
Yeah.
ko.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you agree with me.
Yes. Yes.
agree
Agree.
100%.
Agree. Agree.
I mean,
Yeah.
That,
I
that,
agree.
that,
And I think that's the shift itself, no, Aris, eh? The
Yeah,
shift of mindset of the managers and the leaders, that from
Yes.
It's
task
important.
based to results
Fast.
based, that in
Yeah.
Yes.
itself is
That's right.
anchored on trust. It's anchored on
Mm-mm.
trust, eh? That
Mm-mm.
I'm entrusting you to deliver the results no matter
Right.
Yes.
which way you do it.
Mm-mm.
So I think that is where the whole honesty comes in, no?
Mm-hmm.
Kasi
Right.
Mm-hmm.
the basis of your trust building relationship is that we're honest when I can deliver, when I'm not, cannot deliver, that I am
Mm-hmm.
struggling and I'm
Mm-hmm.
not struggling. And I think that's crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think it's important that upfront you align the key expectations and the metrics, because metrics
Yes,
drive
that's right.
behavior, di ba? Of course, you
Yes,
cannot just
yes.
the trust.
Mm-hmm.
People have to they have to earn your trust also, right? So, but what
Mm-hmm.
do you do at the start? So, the very
Mm-hmm.
for me very important is really align
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
expectations and the metrics,
Mm-hmm.
and then they deliver against that, right? And of course
Mm-hmm.
you provide the right support to make sure
Mm-hmm.
that they are able
Mm-hmm.
to that it's really a feasible one, and you're there to
Mm-hmm.
support them in delivering those metrics.
Mhm. And then
yeah.
as what Ari said, no, your engagement. How do you engage your employees? How do you sustain their interest? Kasi for now, ano yan eh, mga tawag dito, they're very excited with this new hybrid work environment, no? But eventually, it will die down as well because, that's human nature. Kapag medyo parang may ibang uso na naman na work structure or work environment, doon naman sila pupunta. And
Mhm.
that's why, aside from engaging, so how do you more or less sustain their
Mhm.
interest, especially that you cannot see them and you do not interact with them regularly. So I suppose in your different companies or in the companies that you work for or your friends, meron pa rin mga engagement activities that are needed in between. So like you provide them with wala, simple exercises. What do you do? Take a 15-minute break and then give them tips and give them parang a way also to interact with the superiors either via Zoom or via Microsoft Teams. So every now and then, and maybe once a week, physical or face-to-face interaction with them, that will help a lot. So that you can continuously have that kind of relationship with people na meron naman talagang interaction.
Right.
Yun.
Although, yeah, sorry. One last from me. Although it, yes, agree with the the social connection, but we cannot,
Mm-mm.
it's not like one size fits all. I think we need to,
Yes.
even the kind
Yes.
of engagements we
Yes.
Agree.
have,
Mm-mm.
you also have to look at the demographics, right? Iba yung
Yes, that's right.
engagement ng single versus the,
Yes.
the moms, and
Yes.
so it's
Mm-mm.
different. Even the schedule, like for
Mm-mm.
us, we give them the freedom to choose which day they want to go to the office,
Yeah.
and which
Mhm.
ones they
Mhm.
work and at home. And then, but of
Mhm.
course, you want to be there together when you are in the office to have that face to face connection, but you cannot really force. But
Correct.
how do you then entice them to go to work, to
No.
say, okay guys, I'm there, I'll be in the office on this day. Yeah,
Yeah.
who would want? So
Yeah.
sometimes ako have a lunch
Wala.
gathering. You
Uh-uh.
come up with
Yes.
Coffee.
something for them to be, or
Yes.
maybe do your
Yes.
town hall. But at
Yeah.
the end of the
Mm-mm.
day, there's just so much you cannot really force them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
how to
Yeah.
get them to.
In our case,
So
Mylene,
yeah, go ahead, go
yeah,
ahead, go ahead.
siguro talking on based on experience, no. I'm really proud to say that my team in the office were the most consistent of all the other teams in going to the office even at the time when we are not actually required to. It started, in
Yes.
2020. Syempre, in first few months talagang totally bawal, di ba? But as soon as we are allowed to go back, even though it's optional, yung team ko, we're very much consistent in going to the office at least twice a week. No, and I think yung key dito really is you have to set the example. Like
True.
in my case, I didn't force them. I just informed them that I'll be in the office twice a week when
Yeah.
it was already. And then
Mhm.
you joke about it, try to say, I miss ko na kayo, pakita naman kayo, yung mga ganyan, di ba? And they
Mhm.
started going to the office as well. And yeah, they
Mhm.
like it. I think based on I think Gallup poll yata yun, even if they have the option, employees would still prefer hybrid
Yeah.
as
Yes.
compared to
Agree.
100% work from home. Because they really
Yeah.
miss that human connection pa rin eh.
Yeah.
So yeah, and these are the things that we need to consider. So when
Mm.
evolving work setup natin ngayon.
Which is exactly I think Coach Aris and Mylene, no, when even the word engagement, before, the way it was defined when we were 100% working in the office was stress relievers, games, brain
Yeah.
breaks. It was how do we have fun. And then today, because now you're in hybrid, the whole focus of engagement, even
Yes.
the way it's defined and what its relevance is different. It's now
Mm-mm.
about, do you care about my situation?
Yes.
Do I
Mm-mm.
have the productive tools? Am
Yes.
we using the
Mm-mm.
right platforms? All of a sudden,
Mm-mm.
the engagement also focuses now on
Mm-hmm.
communication. It was no longer about break times and going to the gym
Yeah.
and Zumba
Uh-uh.
sessions. It has
Yes.
shifted. And I think
Yes.
when you find what clicks now for employees today is so different from what it was then. which is why I stressed the part in the beginning when I said it should be optional, because people's motivations have shifted in during the pandemic. People's motivations, their priorities, all of the sudden shifted. So
Yeah.
hybrid and remote working may have worked for somebody before, um, but maybe now I cannot be 100% remote. I want to be in the office. And so it's
Mhm.
shifted because people's priorities have completely shifted.
Mhm.
Right.
But
That's
Rhea, I have
why.
a question. All of this is to some companies good for Aris that his team is producing and really enthusiastic about it because they really want to work. But then how do you advise companies who are new at this and are quite concerned with regards to the integrity and honesty of their employees with regards
Mhm.
to their productivity, their accountability? Because from what I hear is that it's okay now to work from Boracay or
Mm.
from wherever, because as long as you produce, as long as you're able to contribute to what you're supposed to do. Now, how is
Mhm.
there? How do you start it up? Is there a workshop that talks to the employees? This is you have to be honest. How do you do it so that it's a newfound freedom for them? All of a sudden, whoo, nobody's behind my back checking on me if I'm behind my desk. How's that?
Well,
I
in our
think
company, go ahead,
go
go
ahead,
ahead,
Tony.
Ria.
Go
Ria,
ahead,
go
Tony.
ahead.
Yeah,
In our
I
company,
think
sorry, sige,
I'm
Ria,
sorry,
go
Rhea na
no,
ahead.
lang,
no, go
Rhea.
ahead, Tony.
Oh,
Tony, go,
oh,
Tony.
okay, okay. So in our company, I just like to share how we did it, no? Actually, it wasn't really planned. Ano to eh, di ba? March 20, 2020, when we were
Yeah.
all asked to go home and, pandemic na, so no one can go to work, etc., etc. So we were not ready, no, for this hybrid or for this work from home structure. So naisip ko lang, on the day itself 'no, na pinapauwi kami, tinanong ko yung team ko, sabi ko, "Do you have ano, fast or Android or iOS?" And then nagpa-set up ako ng email dun sa cellphones nila. So, it's a must because, you cannot communicate and do your work. We cannot stop payroll, 'di ba? We cannot, there has to be something that we still need to do. So, gano'n yung ginawa namin. So, what we did since hindi na nga kami puwede mag-meeting, so to answer your question, Coach Anthony, we were not able to meet anymore and discuss about honesty. So, what we did was we just brainstormed and, designed a form, a simple form. It's an Excel form that focuses on the accomplishments of people during the day, and then sort of a parang target time that they have finished it or how much time they spent, and then we gave it to the we made the supervising officers responsible in ensuring that the targets and the accomplishments are there, and the TAT should still be continued to, to be met. So things like those. But we were really not ready. And as I've said, in the industry that we were in, no, we are in the car industry business. So we only focus on doing the hybrid or the work from home for office-based people. But for those who are, like the service technicians, we also put some structure that unfortunately you have to use your leave credits, and then eventually sumobra yung pandemic, so nagkaroon na ng no work no pay. So it's not really something that all of us were prepared. Maybe dun lang sa industry ni Mylene, because they have been doing that for a long time, even pre-pandemic pa. Yun.
Okay, thank you, Tony. How about Rhea?
Yeah, well, you were asking, Coach, where do you start? No, I mean, what Tony just shared is when you're forced into the situation during the pandemic, you don't have a choice, so you make what you have work. But now that
Yes.
2 years after the pandemic, hindi na pwedeng ano na lang eh, we'll just make it work because you've had
Yes.
opportunities and there's best practices out there.
Mm,
And I think
Yes.
that
mm,
where really you really need to start is, one is org readiness. Do you have the technology that allows
Mhm.
people to
Right.
hybrid work from home? That's both,
mhm.
and technology is and space. Meaning, if they all decide to come to work, do you have the space? If they decide to work from home, do they have the technology? I think that's crucial, because without resolving that, I think no amount of how good your performance evaluation is, or how feedback, or that they choose a schedule works when they don't have the tools, or the organization is not ready to actually support a hybrid setup. So I think that's number one. And I think the second thing is, all companies and all the ones we've worked with, go back to your core values as an organization. Eh. In all the
Yes.
companies we work with,
Agree.
Filipino companies we've worked with in
Mm-hmm.
particular, ethics and integrity are always up there as a core value. We have ethical practice, we're ethical professionals, we have
Mm-hmm.
integrity, we're honest workers. It always seems to be working itself in its core values. And I think
Mm-hmm.
when you're embarking on hybrid, you have to, I think that's where it starts. Eh. It starts from the person actually believing that the organization believes, and that we share that belief, that we are accountable to each other. So integrity is built as an organization, and I think that's important, because if you don't have if you have a very loose uh, way of living out your core values, no amount of how great, how nice your tools are, kahit
Yeah.
anong platform bigay nyo na sobrang galing, kahit na Excel ang gamitin, kahit Slack or Microsoft Teams, is at the end of the day, if there is no shared belief that why I'm accountable to somebody else, which is anchored on your core values, none of that will work. Eh. It will become purely uh, a telecommuting policy, but not a
Mm-hmm.
effective hybrid setup. So I think
Yeah.
that's crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Agree. Agree.
agree,
Mm-mm.
agree. Now with regards to ano, Rhea, regards to if there's a time where your integrity and honesty of employees are really tested, it's now, right? So because
Correct.
you can't see them, you don't know if they're
Yeah.
working. But with regards to using technology, like what you've mentioned a while ago, Slack, do you also advise them on what to use? Because reporting is easy when you are right in front of your boss or you're right in front of your team. But now reporting may be a little bit delayed because and that delay in reporting can really affect productivity.
Mm. I'm
Actually
a
po,
believer of that technology works. I think technology is great as platforms to document what people have been doing, so that other people
Mm-hmm.
in the organization know what you're doing. But I think what the hybrid setup forces now to do is what we've actually been harping on from, I'm sure Aris and Toni and Mylene know this, from management skills, is communication. Eh. The hybrid is now anchored 100% on communication. Short,
Yeah.
Yes.
brief, collaborative
Mm-hmm.
conversations that
Mm-hmm.
happen virtually, that happen on site, that happen, but they're
Mm-hmm.
more meaningful, they're more relevant. I
Mm-hmm.
think that,
Mm-hmm.
for me, trumps any form of technology. Because the
yeah,
technology,
Mm-hmm.
meron pa diyang ano eh, hindi ko alam kung paano gamitin to kasi Gen Xer ako, matanda na ako, hindi ko kaya to. Or
Mm-hmm.
Millennial ako,
man.
so hindi ko alam. Di ba? So, so you'll have that, and then that becomes a deterrent to people say, oh, the tools don't work. So what do we fall
Mm-mm.
back on as leaders? We fall back on the foundation, which is short, collaborative conversations. And I
Yes.
think
Yes.
that is what hybrid setups are anchored on,
Mm-hmm.
whether that be
Mm-hmm.
done virtually, whether that be done through
Mm-hmm.
huddles.
Mm-hmm.
uh the
Yeah.
technology just catches kasi yung pinag-usapan nyo eh. I feel that's where I feel that it
Mm-hmm.
is
If
the
Yeah.
I'm
strength of a hybrid setup.
if I may
Mm-hmm.
quote, no,
Yeah.
it's actually quite ironic, no, na because of technology and the hybrid or work from home setup, actually yung coordination nga and the response time ngayon is even shorter because
Yes.
your boss or you can actually get in touch with your staff anytime.
Yeah.
Unlike before in
Yes.
the office, if your staff is not in his or her desk, then you
Mm-mm.
just delay it. But now the expectation is, if I
Instant.
message you on Teams or email,
Yes.
I expect you to respond. Right? So
Yeah.
yeah, and I think
Mm-mm.
it's quite unfair to the employees to have that kind of expectation now,
Mm-hmm.
and that's because of
Mm-hmm.
technology.
Mm-hmm.
It's available. You can have different platforms to reach
Mm-hmm.
your colleagues, etc.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if I may, Coach, no, I have a very practical and quite controversial question. Going back to our topic of honesty, given the hybrid setup, do you allow your staff or your employees, let's say, to do errands while working from home?
Why not? Why not?
Because before
That's
they're
part
in the
of it.
office, they're just there, right?
Yeah.
But now,
Yeah.
since they're at home, they can do all sorts of things.
Why
They
not?
can do the
It's
laundry.
Yeah,
for
I would.
Yeah, no,
I'm like Mylene. Why not?
why
Oo,
not?
why you have to
oo.
agree from what
It's like
time, di ba? To what time
you
you should be
don't
Yes.
working.
you don't
Yeah.
pay them anymore for the hours rendered.
Yeah.
You pay
Mhm.
them based on the performance and the output, right?
The
So this
output.
is
yeah,
the
Yeah.
yeah,
power of the hybrid setup, because
Yes.
there's
Mhm.
Yes, correct,
flexibility, and
Mhm.
it
correct.
comes, of course, give that the trust to them, right?
Mm.
So dapat kaya, I mean, of course there's alignment, but dapat may alignment between the manager and the employee, that this is
Oo.
how we work, right? Like for
correct.
me personally, I share my own, my personal priorities to my boss, you know which is my three F's, that I your family, faith, and fitness. So in between
Mhm.
my meetings, I work out with Carlo, my partner, and
Mhm.
I'm not shy to say, okay, I have a prayer meeting. It's okay, because as long as you don't slack off, as long as you don't,
Yeah.
as long as you deliver. But if you're
Yeah,
not performing, then ibang usapan yun.
Then that's oh yes,
Diba?
correct. I was
Oo.
about to say, diba? I mean,
Yeah.
hybrid setups don't work when you have a non-performer, because that
yeah,
means that
Yes.
they're not maximizing,
Yeah.
they're not being optimal in the
Mm.
setup. It also sometimes
Mm.
doesn't work for newbies, new
Mm.
employees. There's a period of
Yes.
time that you want them to integrate, because
Yeah.
there's a certain
Mhm.
rhythm that they need to
Yeah.
catch on to
Mhm.
Yeah.
with the organization.
Mhm.
So I sense that
Mhm.
those are the two. So I agreed, Mylene. I personally,
Mhm.
as I shared earlier, our company was 100% hybrid telecommute from the beginning. And I found it actually very empowering for our employees and for myself that I
Mhm.
have control over my time. If I want to
Mhm.
work out till 10 in the morning, I just know that I have to make habol to finish everything else before the end of the day.
Mhm.
So, ita
Mhm.
time ko yan.
Yes.
In
yeah,
fact, my team members see that, oh, my dental appointments are in between, my taking my
Mm.
kid to her tennis. It's all, but what I think has worked well is that you
Mhm.
use the tools to inform
Mhm.
people of where you're at.
Mhm.
And I think
Mhm.
that's crucial. If you want
Mhm.
to be able to use, if you're the type of organization that will allow
Mm.
errands or will
Mm.
allow people
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
flexible,
Yeah.
the trade-off
Yes.
is you gotta put it in the calendar. Because if
Yes.
I
Yeah.
may
Right.
expectation,
I
Aris, diba? I
agree.
expect you to answer
yeah.
me
Oo.
because it's work
Agree, agree.
hour.
Oo.
But
Oo.
Hindi naman
Oo.
yung you're doing groceries when you know you have a meeting, leadership
Oh,
Yes.
meeting,
Right. Right.
it's also
Mm.
that there's that sense of responsibility
Yes.
correct.
in
and
every
Mylene, everything
individual,
has
As
to
right?
long
be
as
scheduled, di ba? Everything has to be
oo.
For
scheduled and
me,
everybody
everything
has
is
to
scheduled. Yeah,
agree
Yes,
on the
pre-align
yes.
yan.
schedule.
And as
Oo.
long as also the deliverables are upfront and agreed between
Correct.
the two of
Yeah.
you, the
Yeah,
subordinate and the superior.
Oo.
So if the deliverables are there, so kahit na mag laundry ka in between, basta you know that you're supposed to submit something at the end
yeah,
of the day or before the end of the day, that's fine.
Actually,
Yeah.
tendency nga eh. Don't
The-
you agree na working from home sometimes, well, at least more often than not, you even render longer hours.
Yes,
Kasi
that's
parang
right.
you wanted
Yeah.
to finish, you're in control eh.
Yes.
You're in
Yes.
control of
Mm-mm.
things, deliver. So
Uh-huh.
you wanted to clear things up, and then, maybe in other days you want to,
Mm-hmm.
rest a little bit
Mm-hmm.
or have,
Mm-hmm.
more lax time. So, pero
Mm-mm.
yeah.
ako na-notice ko longer time. Kasi nga,
Oo.
Okay.
You
it's
know,
a
So,
choice.
there,
It's a
so
choice
but
between you.
sorry to cut everybody. I just have to ask this. I just have to ask this. This came from one of our viewers. This is regarding results. Okay, I'll just read it.
Ah,
Results are important, but process is also essential in ensuring consistency of results. So,
correct.
how do you track process remotely in order to effectively train and mentor? I think this goes to Rhea.
Talagang by default to Rhea. Thank you. um,
Go, Rhea.
JV, yeah, JV, to your question, no, I mean, the process is essential, I think, in ensuring consistency of results. And how do you do that? Um, each of your companies, or in each of your organization, whether you're privately owned or government or a self-starter entrepreneur, um, you need to find a system that works for you of how do you track the results. whether you use KPI, whether you use KRA, whether I use OKR, all of these management jargons. But for me, ultimately, it's just what is the result? Even phrasing it in the result and putting that and constantly having touch points weekly, monthly,
Yes,
bi-weekly,
cadence.
whatever works for you, I think is the best way to monitor. And that becomes coachable moments. They become mentoring moments
Yes.
because when you force
Yes.
a conversation to talk about where are you in terms of your results, what's your roadblock, where are you challenged, how can I help you? Having that conversation doesn't take 2 hours, that takes 30
Yeah.
minutes. And that in itself, I think, creates a very strong role of the leaders who are training and mentoring, is having making sure that you create that rhythm in your employees, whether they be a group mentoring or individual mentoring. Pero kailangan clear yung end in sight. Sabi nga ni Tony, kung malinaw yung expectation, it's easier for me to track where are you versus the expectation. Where are you versus the result? And that for me, in a hybrid setup, only works when you have conversations. The tools kasi don't provide. I can it's ano nga, temptation, di ba, to put whatever I want in the tool. So I think the key is to really have honest conversations, and then it opens up for collaboration and mentoring.
And
Nice.
Yeah.
really, mentoring is very important if you want
Yeah.
to ensure the right results. Okay. I have
Yes.
another question. This is from Marilyn, and I'll give you a rest, Rhea. I'll throw this to Aris and Toni. How can you address people who are dishonest and yet refuse returning to work on site? Probably they have all these excuses, but bottom line is, okay na ako dito sa bahay and mahal ang gasolina ngayon eh. So how do you merge that? Aris.
Oh, well, sa office namin, generally, we didn't have any problem about people not refusing to return to work, no, return on site. It's just that we put a structure nga, so we're very um, open in our communication, and we're direct with our direct in the directive or in the memo that we issue to the company, that effective like this, you are supposed to report on site on these dates. Or we also take conversations with the supervising officer. So ito ba pwedeng hybrid? So pag may hybrid, we ask them ano yung mga days when they can, go to work or report on site, or mag-ano sila, work from home sila. So, things like those. So, it's not really, paano ba, I have not really experienced in this kind of work environment, no? People refusing to go back to work.
Yeah.
Hindi pa naman namin naging problem yon. Because, at the end of the day, you are supposed to um, deliver results. And how can you deliver results if you are not following the company policy? And then maybe because of the pandemic also, they are worried that they might lose their job, and it's so hard to get another job. That's why they would rather, follow the company directives.
Yeah, agree, Tony. No, in my case, I'm blessed that I haven't dealt with this type of situation before.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I guess yung thought ko dito would be, first of all, if that employee is really dishonest, there's a way to deal with that employee, di ba? May HR
Yes,
process naman.
yes,
And if it's proven that
yes.
he or she is really dishonest, then why is he still in the
Mhm.
company, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
if that person refuses to return to work, even though that's a directive, then again we
Mhm.
have processes in place to deal with this type of
Yes.
behavior. So I
Mhm.
guess
Mhm.
regardless of
Mm.
the work setup, this would apply.
Mhm. Yes, that's right.
I,
Mhm.
I think that there are those who take the opportunity to take a second, third job. Kasi before
Mhm.
they're required to go to work, 8 hours.
Mhm.
The boss will see if you're not there, then you're not working.
Mhm.
But now yung iba
Mhm.
nagmo-moonlighting di ba?
Talaga?
Yeah, so probably
Mhm.
the reason why they refuse, they want to continue on with their
Mhm.
other jobs other than their main job, which is
Mhm. Mhm.
Actually,
ano,
coach,
yeah, go ahead.
I've experienced I've experienced helping clients who really have workers who don't want to come to work, and we really encourage them to have conversations to really dig deep in the why,
Yeah.
because malalaman mo na doon in those conversations if
Mhm.
it is just an excuse.
Mm-mm.
whether they have other jobs or they just
Mhm.
have personality concerns. But
Mhm.
honestly, having the conversation will help elicit kasi the real reason. And oftentimes
Correct.
it's fear.
Yes, that's right.
Sometimes it's,
Mm-mm.
wala akong, I
Oo.
fired my maid during the pandemic, so walang mag-aalaga sa mga anak ko. So, pero hindi ko kaya aminin sa yon kasi pag inamin ko yon, it's a sign of weakness. So sometimes you have to unearth why
Right.
do they refuse to come
Yes,
to
that's
work. And I
right.
think it's
Oo.
important. Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
conversation again
Yes,
comes into play. And as
conversation.
sabi nga
No.
ni
Mm-mm.
Aris, if
Mm-mm.
during that conversation it's very clear that oh these are all just excuses, there's already a HR policy that can come into
Yes, that's
play.
right.
But
Mm-mm.
yeah.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Now, this is my the last question actually. This is for everyone. Huh? Considering all that you are doing, all the systems that you have in place for hybrid, do you think the government will be able to implement this? What's your thoughts? I throw it to the panel.
Oh yeah, why can't they? Of course. Meron bang difference between the nature of work of the private companies versus the government? Although I've been experiencing a lot of ano kasi 'di ba, we also deal with the government. Merong pag pumunta yung tao ko to SSS, ay wala po yung nagpa-process, naka-work from home. So sabi ko, it's the first time that I've heard that when people work from home, they are literally home and they do not work. So they should not refer to it as naka-work from home, 'di ba? So things like those. But I don't agree that the government cannot do the same thing like the private companies do. Pare-pareho yan eh, unless the nature of work really cannot be done from home. But structure-wise, mas maganda nga kung online na lahat. Imagine, online ng LTO mo, online lahat ng real property tax mo, hindi ba? So it's
Yeah.
going to be a very efficient country.
Yeah, that's
I,
right.
I, I
Oh, yeah.
Mm-mm.
the government, I think the government is equally challenged, just like any private organization. The government's equally
Mhm.
challenged, and if not, what the pandemic has done has forced them to really dig into
Yeah.
digitalization of processes, which
Yes.
now actually
Yes.
enables hybrid setups for the
Yes.
government. The
Mhm.
thing, I think the
Mhm.
big difference between a government and corporates is that in the government there needs to be modularization when you roll out a hybrid. What do I mean by modularization? You really think about dividing the work that the employees of the government can do on independently without having to rely on decisions or approvals from others.
Right. Right.
Those can
Mhm.
be done from home, and
Mhm.
Yes.
then then there are those that need to be done online. Similarly to how they've done for schools, where there's asynchronous and synchronous tasks, the government can actually adapt a similar mindset, wherein which tasks can be done by government workers that do not rely on connections to others, and those can be done at home, or set
Nice.
up the way that yeah I can do which of my work as a government employee requires focus, and those are the days that I can work from home. So
Yeah.
it's really about I think identifying um, the right mix of synchronous and asynchronous tasks for government. They're not yet, I think, at the results based, but I think they're very task oriented. So it's a
Right.
splitting of tasks. So modularization, I think, works best for them.
Mhm.
I also feel that in the government, because of the nature of who they service, hybrid setups will work best when they're clearly defined. We work the same hours. Whether you work from home and work from the office as a government office, kailangan we work the same hours because we're connected and because we're a service to a public. So I think that's very different from a corporate setup wherein I can work
That's
different
true.
hours of the day. But for corporate government, kasi there's a public sector that relies
Right.
on the regularity of a response. So I
Yeah, the
think that's the
delivery of
difference.
the
I think
service, diba? The delivery of the service
correct.
is very important.
Not all
Yes.
agencies in Europe would be able to do it. I guess there are some agencies that can actually do work from home setup because they don't have to face, you know, the public.
The clients, the public,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So say
Mhm.
I think same rules apply naman eh. If they have the technology to support it and they
Mhm.
have
Correct.
the process to back it up, then why not?
Mhm. Mhm.
Biases
Mhm.
aside.
Well, okay. Yeah, those really are very, very, very interesting and very, very relevant and precious insights.
Oo.
But unfortunately, this is such a
Yeah.
wonderful discussion. But unfortunately, as they say, all good things must come to an end. Sana mga 3 hours ito. And I'm willing to do
Oo,
that.
Parang
eh.
bitin na, no?
Why not?
Oo, and then we can
May
share
part two.
talaga, we can
Oo, di
share
ba?
best
May part
practices
two.
also, 'di ba?
Yes.
We can learn
Oo.
from one
And learn
another
from each
better.
other.
Galing,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, oo.
Okay. Now, let's
Mm.
just to wrap things up. May I invite everyone, all our panelists, to give our viewers your final thoughts on what would be your greatest mindset change going into a hybrid future. Okay, so let's start off with Mylene, and then Mylene, you call the
Okay.
next person, and then let's
All
end
right.
with Rhea. So Rhea
Biggest
will wrap.
minds. Okay, okay. So I think for me, biggest mindset change is my leadership style, from being, business metrics, driven, to put a little more empathy, more relationship building with employees, because right now it's really work and personal is blending, right? So it's for you to be effective in running your team, running a business. It's important that you fully understand, the personal side also of your team, so that they continue to be motivated in
Mm.
working with you in the organization, and ensure that you have a shared vision, that they
Mhm.
feel that they're part of that bigger vision of this organization. Then hopefully they we both work together in this hybrid setup. That's it. Okay, how about you, Aris?
Yeah, thank you, Mylene. For me, I have a confession to make. No, before the pandemic, I mentioned already earlier that we actually have this type of setup already. So it's optional to work from home 2 times a week, even before COVID-19 hit us. But at that time, I have my preference. I actually medyo subtle lang, but I discourage my direct reports to avail of that option. I hope they're not listening now. Because
Kasi
yeah.
tapat dapat, di ba? Tapat dapat.
Oh,
To
yeah.
be honest.
But then when the pandemic hit, syempre I have no choice but to embrace this type of setup. And I was proven wrong. In my case, and in the case of my team, it really worked. So you're very productive,
Mhm.
doing hybrid work setup. And I guess my mindset now is really to empower them, to trust them to do their work. So long as we have alignment, they can be flexible. They can do some personal stuff within the day, so long as it doesn't take too much time away from work. But then again, that would also require them delivering the result or the output that we agreed upon. So I guess that's the most important thing,
Mhm.
empowerment. And we should really strike a balance between, honesty and trust. So it works,
Yes.
it goes together. So if
Mhm.
if you if they're honest enough and you trust them enough, then there should be no problem, even if it's a hybrid setup.
Mhm. Mhm.
So Tony.
Okay. So for me, ang takeaway is really the change in mindset. So change in mindset meaning lahat to eh, 'di ba? Everything changes. So this hybrid is the start of the hybrid work environment. So there must be something that happened there should be something that happened in your mind to be able to adapt to this hybrid work environment. And sometimes para sabi nga ni Mylene, may tendency to not really tendency, so she would like to have more connection with the team, tama ba Mylene?
Yeah.
So ako din, I have a tendency to expect people to be like me. And I should not be like that because, if I am passionate about something, I expect my team members to be as passionate as me. So doon nagkakaroon ng disconnect sometimes. And sometimes I had to have this conversation on improving productivity if they do not meet my standards. So there has to be some level of connection, of understanding them so that I can work better with them. Now, for the hybrid working environment, I suppose the company that I have right now, sana wala ring nakikinig, Aris. I don't think that we are into the hybrid work environment. That's why we have been reporting for work since October last year pa nung nag-alert alert 2 na, because because of the nature of the business we are in. So I think I need to be able to prove to management that having this hybrid work setup can work also,
Yes.
similar to how it worked during the pandemic. We were able to provide all the HR services naman, and the other departments also were able to provide their services. PATs were also met, and the quality of work was there. Or maybe on the HR standpoint, if we are going to continue with this hybrid work environment, we can also change our benefits package. Even if, like for example, you now provide a fleet card, gasoline allowance. Eh kung naka-work from home karamihan yan, 3 times a week, baka wag mo nang bigyan ng 200 liters a month, 100 liters na lang, parang ganyan, di ba? So we can align all the benefits packages also when it comes to the type of work environment that we are in. And probably we should no more provide them with uniform allowance or uniform, because they just stay home. So it's going to be a lot of cost savings to the company, and probably use the money elsewhere. So my big takeaway is my biggest takeaway is whatever we do in this life, no, so there has to be a direct connection with him up above there, so that we can continuously be guided, and especially in the kind of work that we do, that we are the decision makers, to provide us with that discernment, so that we can continuously serve him for his greater glory. That's it.
Nice.
Mm-mm.
Amen to that, Tony. Amen.
Amen.
Nice. Amen, Tony.
Yeah.
Um, for me, I think ultimately I'm optimistic about the future of work. Hybrid setup, remote setups, telecommuting. I think the pandemic has expedited that to happen way sooner than later. The HR trends was we were only headed there, but the pandemic has forced us to escalate our plans sooner than later. I go back to my main point in the beginning, wherein I think any hybrid setup should be optional. Giving employee it's empowering. To set up a hybrid setup is empowering for employees to know that they're in control, but at the same time, it's anchored on trust. And that in itself, I think, is a very strong driver that motivates employees, that they're being given an opportunity to shape the way they work, and that they're accountable for the results in a way that works for them and also ultimately works for the company.
Yep.
um, I even before COVID-19, there's already a shift to rethink practices that were conventional but not efficient. So I think the challenge now is for both employers and employees to really get creative. It's an opportunity to
Yeah.
collaborate and say, what are new ways that we can do things? And be open to flexible ways of working that works for both the industries they're in, for the types of employee demographics, and given the limitations of the company when it comes to technology and internet, and for the employees. But hybrid setups to is done effectively if done effectively is very empowering, and every effective hybrid setup is anchored on trust, and employers need to be honest when to their employees when it's not effective or working for the company at this point. I think
Yeah.
that honesty is important for the employers to say, gusto namin pero hindi pa namin kaya. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
And then for the employees to be honest to themselves that they're accountable for the results, and that when it's not working, are also ultimately going to be honest and say, I'm struggling, and I think that's very important. Um, and but I'm optimistic that a lot of organizations are in a good space to rethink the way they work. And who knows? I mean, it's an opportunity really for Filipino organizations, both private and public sector, to really make a new way of working that hopefully also drives infrastructure of the country, because if more organizations are moving in this direction, can you imagine the impact it will have on our internet? It forces kasi a lot of new technology to take place. So I think for me, I'm optimistic that this hybrid setup is the way to go, as long as we're also honest about whether it's working for our organizations or not. And I think that's crucial.
There. Thank you. Thank you so much, Rhea. And just like that, we have come to an end of this episode with so many insights and stories. But, my key takeaways, I really learned a lot, is that, perhaps the hybrid setup is the silver lining in this pandemic. We were forced to revisit it. We were forced to study it and make it work. Otherwise, we sink, right? And another one is the hybrid setup is not for every company or employee. But if you want to revisit it, if you want to make it work, it works based on the testimonies of our panelists. And I know a lot of friends who like Toni said, it can even save the company a lot of money and have that savings channeled back to the employee so that they're more
Yes, that's
encouraged and
right.
inspired, right, to work. Because it's really about my second takeaway is really what Aris said. It's a balance between honesty and trust. And those two words cannot be demanded. It has to be earned and it has to be worked on. And lastly, human connection is important to make this hybrid setup work. Yeah. Okay. So really, for me, my call to action is to go back to my company's mission vision and make sure that all the employees, everyone knows it, not only by reciting it, and they know it by heart. And that will start the ball rolling for honesty, trust, and integrity to come in to your hybrid environment. All right. So again, I invite you to please like, follow, and subscribe to BCBP Alabang on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And thank you so much, Toni, Aris, Mylene, and Rhea for really teaching us a lot of things and opening our minds to this hybrid setup that there's so much talk about it. And now everything's clear and we can go proceed on the right foot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Thank you very
Po.
much. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Rhea.
Salamat.
We had
Go
fun.
live or go live. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Nice.
Okay.
Galing.
Bitin. Nandun yung oras.
Parang, parang I
We had
wanted to
fun.
share pa nga, naubos yung
Naubos na pala.
Ubus na yung oras.
umabot. Ay, meron
Pwede
pa
pa
ako
naman
isang
tayong
takeaway.
dumagdire-diretso.
May
Huwag
questions
sasabihin.
pa.
Ayan o, may questions pa. Alert level 0.
From
Level zero.
Rob
Yes.
Atendido. Within your networks and industries, any trends you can share where there is more openness in a hybrid setup? Another question. Anyone?
Oh,
Trends.
marami naman. Oo.
I think that
Openness?
they're
Oo.
May tanong si Robin Atendido.
my husband knows Robin. Bobit kasi may tanong pa si Bobit. Are there more trends that we can share for more
There's more
industries?
openness.
Oo. Marami
Siguro
naman.
what you mentioned, Aria, yung being open, being able to admit if it doesn't work or if you're struggling. How do you encourage that to come out?
I think to this question kasi is that are there industries that are more inclined for a hybrid setup? I think industries that are fully technology driven, I think is easy. Mylene
Yes.
would be a case in point. Administrative roles maybe in a certain
Yes.
industry. I'm sure like in Toni's role, mahirap
Yes.
naman mag-work from home yung ibang roles in your industry, but there are majority. But I think the biggest trend, I think, is the investment in technology for me. The biggest trend, regardless of what industry you're in, that's the biggest trend. And if an organization is willing to invest in technology, the openness to hybrid is natural. Kasi meron na.
Oo.
I mean, si Aris in the pharma industry, we never thought the pharma could go hybrid and that doctors will be open to virtual consultations and that doctors will be open to
Correct,
calls
correct.
made by reps virtually. We never
Uh-huh.
thought that would be
Yeah.
possible. The reps would never want it. The
Right.
reps, kailangan nakapasok ako sa
Yes.
ospital. But the pandemic forced the doctors and the reps. And now
Yeah.
some doctors say, ayoko na bumalik. Huwag na kayo pumunta sa office. Mag-virtual na lang tayo. Kasi
Oh, ganyan
kikita
din
ko
mga
Zoom na
sa
lang,
waiting
Zoom.
space.
Right.
Oh, Zoom na lang. And I
Sa
think that
amin,
industries,
sa amin,
but that's only happened because we
Yes.
gave the reps iPads. If you didn't give them
Yeah.
iPads, they wouldn't be able to do that. So technology will be the driver, I think.
true.
Ano ba yun, Rhea? Di ba? There's iPhones who you put your finger there and it can get your pulse rate and ganun ba yung ginagamit ng mga doctor ngayon? Instead of, the stethoscope directly on
So,
your chest.
No,
yeah,
naman. Meron na.
marami
With
ng
Aris
mga
would be in a better
platforms.
position.
Yeah, there's a lot of platforms available now for teleconsultation. But of course, there are some things that you cannot do virtually. Di ba? You really need
Correct.
Oo.
to
Correct.
see the
Right.
doctor. Like,
Yeah,
if you need to
physically.
like, work up, lab
Mm-mm.
exams, etc. But
Mm-mm.
if it's just really just follow up, consult, for example,
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
marami na ngayon eh. But again, then again, the challenge is sa part ng doctors, not
Mm-mm.
everyone would be that, open to it.
Yeah.
Like, especially the older,
The
physicians.
yeah.
So they really have to be, they need to see the patient face to face, for them to be able to,
But
do this
Aris, did
type
you
of
see a
interaction.
shift, Aris, though, in the doctors and rep relationship?
Yeah,
May
yeah.
shift ba, Aris?
Um,
Kasi
before,
doctors to patient, clear yon. Pero for
correct.
reps, nagbago kaya?
Yeah, it's very challenging because in the past, the reps would just go to the clinic. So the doctor, they have no choice but to entertain you if you're the rep
Yeah.
because you're already there in front of them. That was
Mm-mm.
the practice before. So
Mm-mm.
unless they lock their door and then tell their secretary not to allow reps to go inside, they have no choice but to listen to the reps. But now they
Mm-hmm.
can opt not to accept invites for, let's say, a Zoom meeting
Mhm.
or a Zoom
Ah,
project
no?
presentation.
Mas
For
mahirap, no?
So it's very challenging. Like in our case,
Yeah.
especially I'm in marketing, um, it's really all about content. If the doctor finds value in what the rep is presenting, they would be more willing to invite to accept the invite. But if the doctor doesn't find any value to the interaction, why would they waste time, di ba?
Mm-mm.
So,
Mm-mm.
yun yung challenge
Oo
ngayon
nga.
sa pharma
Mm-mm.
companies. How do you make sure that you always have something, relevant, something new to share to the doctors?
But
So,
look what that has done, Aris, diba? It forces now a new way of relationship building for the farmer
Right.
rep. And I think
correct, correct.
in a way it actually elevates the competence necessary to be a
Mhm.
farmer rep. That it's no longer just
Yes,
on what I
yes,
bring the doctor. It's a conversation I have.
correct, correct.
Walang ano, to borrow the words, wala nang dead air eh. Hindi pwede magka-dead air eh. Kasi
Pwede.
virtual
Saka
yung
yung
conversation
creativity
natin.
na rin ng mga reps, di ba? How they can be
Correct.
creative, but
Kasi ngayon,
Here's another question. From Cliff Young. As we approach level zero, yung alert level zero, with employers preferring to shift back to full force in the workplace, how may we ask the employees to advocate or continue the hybrid work setup? Because I know for a fact, there's one multinational, sabi nila, their productivity dip because parang all of a sudden yung enthusiasm to go back to work with your peers. I'm having enthusiastic about it. Our teamwork, seeing everybody, parang the morale went down. And how do you solve that, diba? So
Yeah.
what do you think? To
You
get
know,
the
I
employees
liken
out of
this.
the house.
I liken this to, you know how like when you give a student an A or a 100, they have to fight to keep their 100, di ba? Kasi 100% na yung score ko, or I have an A, or I have a 1 if you're from that college, or a 4 depending on which college you went to. But I think that when you give it's like kasi you gave them the best of the world to work from home, and then now you're forcing me to come back. So the key now is the burden shifts. For me, I feel the burden shifts on the employees to say, kaya namin to. How do I do that? I will say, hey, look, these are the tasks we can continue to work from home. And these are the ones, no choice, we really have to come to work. Gets ko. I will come to work. Pero I can do this from home. So I think it's up to now the employees to say what's working and what's not.
Yeah.
But that's also a very big
Conversation.
shift because that means you have to
Yeah.
be honest that it's working. Kasi
Like,
pwedeng sabihin, it's working because I'm honest, it's working because of my circumstances.
yeah.
But it's not honest working for the company. And I think that's why some of the employees are having difficulty having to advocate for that because
Yeah.
malilito kasi yung results mo kung if it
Yes,
speaks for
oo.
itself
And it will go back to the conversations, 'di ba? They need to communicate with their supervising officers if they really want to, continue with the hybrid setup. But
Yeah.
maybe on the, well, speaking about HR, on the HR standpoint, pwede sigurong gradual muna yung go back to work.
basic.
Oo, isa-isang araw, dalawang araw. So, para hindi masyado
Oh,
drastic na effective Monday, all
Yeah.
of us will go to work for 5 days already. So, kasi 'di
sa
ba, yung mga bata ngayon iba sila eh.
Although for
Siguro
me, I
what
suggest to empower the employees. How can they
Mm.
convince? If they wear the hat of their leaders and know what's the vision
Yes.
of the organization,
Yes.
then they
Yes.
maybe they can make recommendation, and this is where we can do prop. Because they have to see the eyes of the business owners or
Mm.
the leaders, eh. 'Di ba? Hindi
Mm.
naman
Yeah,
pwede
it's
puro
working.
So that
Yes.
maybe you contribute something. What can you contribute on
Mm.
how what will be the value of hybrid setup for
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
business? Maybe they can drive some
Mhm.
yeah,
initiatives there. It could be cost cutting, or it could be,
Mhm.
increase
yeah.
productivity by this means. So
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
how probably for me they can get the
Pero
attention.
pero kayo, anong boto nyo? Do you go for hybrid
Kami ano na
or on-site?
sa amin
Personally,
hybrid.
hybrid.
Personally, I think it works. So why change it?
Mm.
Yeah.
And even sa
Yeah.
sa corporate level, encourage na yung hybrid. I mean, we reduced
Oo.
our workspace by like 30,
Yes, that's right.
32% already. So
Oo.
we
Oh
won't
yeah,
go back.
I heard of a bank nga eh. They ano na eh, they
They
stop the
closed
lease.
branches na.
Oo, they close branches and
Yeah.
then yung lease nila doon sa isang big office space, wala
At
na
saka
rin.
with the hybrid, it's borderless talent.
Yes,
You
tama.
don't just It's not just like people working from home here.
Yeah,
Mag-iba nag-widen siya. You can even get temp
Mm.
talents from the
Correct.
yeah, that's
province
what
or
we're
even
doing now.
iba.
Mm.
So it's
Even
Yeah, that's
And
right.
international, like
no need to relocate them. You don't need to
Oo,
pay
no
for
need to
yeah.
relocation
relocate. Tama.
expense.
Tama.
Allowance, di ba?
Mm.
even
Massive allowance.
Oo.
talent development now is even better.
Yeah.
You
Mm.
can
So
you have stretch assignment, like for example, one staff working for a project, let's say based in France, for example, but doing it
Mhm.
remotely here in the Philippines. That's
Yeah.
possible now. Before you have to go there to
Mm.
do it, diba?
Mm.
Correct. Yeah.
It's more
I,
We
I
really
also think I
saved a
also
lot
think
of
that it's
money.
really yeah,
Oo.
I also think that hybrid the to Tony's question nga, pwede bang phasing in? For certain companies talagang kailangan i-phase in because they're not ready,
Yes.
yeah.
'di ba?
Oo. They're not
But I feel
ready.
but even the phasing in needs to be anchored on what's really gonna work for the company. There's no one size
Mm.
fits all. I mean, there's
Yes.
so
Mm.
many
That's right.
research out there that says
Mm.
optimal is 1 day work from the office,
Yeah.
optimal 2 days work from site,
Mm.
eh,
But sometimes
optimal
kasi
for
it's dictated by the owners eh, 'di ba? The
Correct.
so
owners
it's
or the
optimal for
ano.
who? Correct.
Siguro
Yeah, so
Depende pa rin.
one
Mm.
practical siguro tip kay Cliff to answer yung question niya is they can do benchmarking across within their industry.
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 Yes.
Kasi you have
Correct.
to
Mm.
Yeah.
justify, di
That's
ba? So
true.
if you do
Mm.
Oh,
benchmarking, you
yeah.
strengthen your case, di ba?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, may
And
iwan
Mm.
also
sila if you don't
benchmarking
change.
within at saka
Within their
benchmarking
industry, I think.
within the company and within their own company. Ano yung best practice
Mm.
nilang
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
ka-empleyado
that's
niya?
a good
What's
Oo.
worked
example.
for you?
Oo.
What's
Oo.
worked for me?
Mm.
What's worked for me?
Oo.
And then
Mm.
saying, oh, pwede pala madami tayong similar experiences. It becomes a case for
Mm.
change. Because
But
if
Yes,
there's
that's right.
the momentum comes from within
Mm.
Di ba?
Mm. And ano
they,
din 'di ba, companies were able to save a lot of cost. Kasi dati kapag nagmi-meeting, saan ang meeting? Binondo. Saan ang meeting? Sa BGC. Pero ngayon, it's virtual.
Sa
No more
click lang.
transportation
Lumit
expenses.
ang OPEX.
Pero meron
Oo,
bang
lumit ang OPEX.
meron bang numbers on employees taking less vacation days
Yes.
on a work from home?
Yes,
Yung
it's proven.
getting sick from COVID. Yan.
Yeah,
Pero
for
yung
our
other
case,
than
I've
meron ba?
seen that. Oo, for our
I think
case,
it
I've
will
seen
evolve
that.
pa, Coach eh.
Oo.
Kasi before, like in the past 2 years, very limited yung opportunity to travel. So there's really no need to file for a VL, di ba? Because
Yeah.
you're just at
But
home.
you know,
Now it's
but you know,
opening
it
up.
depends also. Depends. Kasi kung convertible to cash yung leaves mo, hindi ko a-avail yan pag naka-work from home ako. Kasi
Oo,
I
tama.
will bank it.
Yeah,
Depends
yeah.
on your
Yes.
policy. It really depends on your
Yes.
policy.
Oo.
I've seen though, in my company, for example, we have employees who say, Rhea, I'm gonna go on like a week leave. I'm gonna use my leave. Kasi hindi ko siya, ang policy namin, hindi yan nagki-carry over next year. Saka hindi siya convertible to cash. So pag hindi mo ginamit, forfeit. So people will say, I'll take it. And for me, I encourage that. I encourage it because it's saying you cannot tell me you are burned out. You cannot tell me you had no breaks. You cannot tell me you are stressed because there's a leave policy in place. So I feel that observation of people not using their leaves depends also what's their policy. Kasi advantageous yun. Sabi nga ni Aris, wala naman akong pupuntahan eh. Kasi 2 years alert level. So my leaves, I will not use. And what if it's
So now
convertible
it
to cash?
might change
Advantageous
now.
na.
Pwede na eh.
Oo, ngayon pwede na
We'll
ulit.
see, we will
Oo.
see.
Okay, let's continue this. Baka may part 2. So, ang ganda ng usapan natin, but we all would like to thank you for really helping us out here and volunteering your time for our viewers and as service also to God and our mission. So again, thank you and
Thank
good
you.
night, and hope we can have a part 2. I'm sure this is the lot of our viewers will be requesting this.
And I hope to see you face to face. Kasi ang layo ko eh. Were you able to attend last Saturday? Sa
Yeah.
Alabang?